one of the things you want to talk about, and it's something that's very exciting, is the Blockware Marketplace. And I want to dive deep into this because it's something that's going to, as you mentioned before, it may change the mining as a service game. And talk about it. I want to hear a little bit more about this because this appears to be one of your more exciting products that you're bringing to the market.
For sure. Yeah, I can go over it. And I think, just broadly speaking, I think it just kind of changes for a retail and, institutional investor alike, or, retail or institutional miner alike. I think it just completely changes just mining, period, and what exactly mining looks like as the investor, as the individual. So, broadly speaking, taking a step back, the Blockware Marketplace is a Lightning integrated, Lightning enabled platform that operates fully on chain. So how it works is, currently at the moment, all of the rigs listed on there are located at our facility in Eastern Kentucky. So you can go on there and you can view all of the listings. There's a ton of different types of machines, all the way down to the M30S, all the way up to, XP Pro Plus, things like that. So these are all rigs that are currently up and hashing at our facility in Eastern Kentucky, listed for sale by the current owner of that machine. So, one question I get a lot is like, why is this machine listed at this price? Why is this machine listed at this price? It's like, this is a marketplace. This isn't Blockware saying, hey, we want to sell an S19J Pro at $1,500. This is a client saying, based off of their current attitude towards the investment that they have, based off their cost basis, based off of what they see in the market, hey, I want to list this machine for sale at this price. So how it works is the client goes on, lists something for sale. These are all located at our facility in Eastern Kentucky. The buyer goes on there, chooses a rig that they'd like to purchase, hits buy. It operates, through the Bitcoin blockchain. So it, occurs with a on-chain transaction that transfers the ownership of that hard asset, the ASIC, from seller to buyer. Danny, how would you broadly kind of explain the marketplace in a more elegant fashion?
I thought you did a great. I mean, I think you're spot on. Let me give you a little bit different perspective. So almost like from an investment thesis perspective, as you look at mining, and then you look at mining with the optionality that the marketplace provides. So if you think about mining Bitcoin, the investment thesis is you have a CapEx upfront to go buy the rigs, to buy the hardware, right? And it's, if you take Bitcoin out of it, you take whatever it is, you just look at it from a traditional investment perspective. It's like you have this like long CapEx lockup period. And then that gives you the opportunity to constantly or perpetually, dollar cost average. And you're, theoretically making Bitcoin. I'm just kind of trying to, make this very simple, at a price that is less than the price at which you could buy Bitcoin on the open market, right? Because all you're doing is you're taking in electricity as the cost mechanism. And this is one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin, with the difficulty adjustment and that whole just beautiful artistic part of the design of Bitcoin. It's like, there's going to be economic incentives to mine Bitcoin or you won't mine Bitcoin, right? So the way to traditionally look at Bitcoin mining is you got a long CapEx lockup period, and then you have like a 2 to 3 year or 18 month. It varies, right, based on market dynamics. CapEx recovery period via the profits that you get from mining Bitcoin, right? Now, and then the out years are gravy, and if you're hodling your Bitcoin, then that goes way up, and it looks like a killer investment. And historically, in any prolonged period, we can look back in time, it has outperformed just buying Bitcoin or dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin. Now, what it does is it significantly, it does not. So what you're getting is you're buying a, dividend paying asset, right? Now, we get the dividend part, that's the Bitcoin, but it discounts the fact that the rig itself has a spot value. Right. I mean, and we saw S19J Pros go from, $2,000 when they came out to peak at like $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 US dollars. Sorry, just to be specific, late 2021. And now they're like $1,500, $2,000 again. So if I bought, at any point in time, like in my asset appreciated significantly, but I don't have liquidity, it's just a nice paper gain, right? There's nothing you can do about that. It's like, cool, like this rig that I have that I can't do anything with, is theoretically worth a lot more money that I can't go get, right? So what the Blockware Marketplace does is, number one, I mean, I think to simplify it, it solves three major market challenges, traditional mining investment thesis challenges. Number one is transparency. So every rig on the marketplace is plugged in, turnkey hashing at our facility, right? So not all rigs are created equal. These are 30-pound, computers, right? Servers that are cranking all the time. So, fans break, you get some duds out of the box. That's just the reality. It's always going to be the reality, is that hardware is not perpetually, viable, and you're going to get some variability. So the transparency side is, you can see, what's the historical hash rate of this rig? What does the up and down time look like? How long has it been online? What's the serial number? It sounds kind of basic if you're not familiar with mining and you're used to buying stuff on Amazon.com. You're like, yeah, isn't that a given? It's not a given in this space, right? So transparency is huge. Second one is lead times, right? Like, these machines are all born in Asia, basically. There's two major manufacturers. So, and the way the market works is it's 100% payment, on the CapEx. So for the rigs up front. And then you got to wait. Right now the supply chain is not condensed. There's a pretty good supply of rigs. Lead times are pretty short, but even if it's, 3 weeks or so, or a month, in 2021, early 2022, people were buying 4 or 5 month future deals to pay up front for, right? So time is money, because if you can plug that in and eliminate your 2 week or 2 month or, 6 month lead time, you're generating revenue, you're generating profit, and you're lowering your, cost basis, and you're starting to get a return on your investment. So with the marketplace, there's no lead time effectively, right? You are buying a rig that is turnkey hashing, and time is money, right? So that's big. And then the third, and this is what I'm like, I think the first two are epic. And we did a survey on Twitter a couple months ago, and it was 33% for each one of these of what's your favorite feature. My personal favorite feature is the fact that I have instant liquidity on that rig, theoretically, right? Like, now I can go on, and I'm a chief revenue officer at Blockware Solutions, but I'm also a customer of Blockware Solutions. I'm a Bitcoin miner, right? So I buy machines, and historically, I'm looking at 2-3 years. This looks great. I love dollar cost averaging. I'm doing it at a discount. I love the inherent investment thesis with mining. But now I can go and say, okay, I'm just going to set a 20, 30, 40%, premium to my buy price as a bid, as an ask for my machine. And if somebody buys it, great. If nobody buys it, I'm buying Bitcoin. That's great too. But if somebody buys it, and this is kind of the coolest part, and Blake was alluding to it, it's a circular economy. I get paid in Bitcoin when I sell that rig, and it makes a on-chain or Lightning enable, which is on-chain, transaction, which, in a manifested scale, that adds to miner revenue. Right. So I'll say one more thing, and then I'll shut up here.
No, keep rolling downhill, man. This is yours to talk about.
If you're with mining, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a disproportionate return on your capital investment denominated in Bitcoin as fast as possible, right? That's kind of what you're trying to do. Otherwise, just go buy Bitcoin. It's really easy. You can click a button, but you're trying to get, the best return you can as fast as possible denominated in Bitcoin. So if I can buy rigs, mine Bitcoin, lower my dollar cost average, and let's say that it would take me 2-3 years to get to 30-40% flat market return. I'm taking out the fact that we all think that Bitcoin is coiled and going to have a great future on a dollarized priced basis, right? But just let's remove that variable. It would take me 2-3 years, right, to get my 30% return back on my investment. Now, if I can get that 30% return by a combination of, listing my rig where there's a premium for, buying turnkey, having this transparency, and maybe some of that is manifested by the fact that I'm constantly lowering my cost basis because I'm mining Bitcoin. If I can get to my target 30, 40, 50, whatever my percent, target return is in 3 months or 3 weeks or 8 months or anything better than 2, 3 years, and it's denominated in Bitcoin, that's better, right? So that's where the marketplace is just shaking up everything, because you still get to mine Bitcoin. Your baseline strategy is the same, but now you've got effectively this like pull your ROI forward option, but not obligation. And wait till we see like some positive price action, which I think is kind of around the corner, is then you get to see like these rig prices appreciate like crazy, and rigs are cheap right now. So I don't know, Blake, I'm going to pass it back to you, and Len, I'm going to stop talking now, but
No, man.
yeah,
no problems. Keep going. But yeah, Blake, I want to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with Danny. I think like from a capital management perspective, the liquidity is immensely important, right? Having asset side liquidity is something that was never really an option in Bitcoin mining, right? If you had ASICs and you decided for whatever reason, maybe you wanted to capitalize on the appreciation of hardware, maybe you decided, ooh, I don't want to be mining anymore. You saw the market turning in 2021, whatever the case is, there was never really an option to sell your rigs unless you're going to go like list them on eBay, or you're going to come to someone like Blockware who's got to go out and find a buyer for your rigs, and it takes time. And there's no guarantee that we find someone who wants to buy your rigs at your price. Whatever the case is, there was never really the option of having asset side liquidity. But in my personal perspective, I think the biggest issue that the Blockware Marketplace is solving is counterparty risk. And we talked about it earlier when we, Blockware, 2 years ago went out and built our own data centers, and we were trying to minimize counterparty risk for our clients. I think counterparty risk is the biggest issue in the entire crypto industry, let alone, Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. And obviously 2022 is a huge eye opener to this. Hosting providers obviously had some issues. There are a few of them, not to name names. And then you look at, FTX, and you look at, all these, Binance having issues, yada, yada, whatever the case is. Counterparty risk is a ginormous issue. So I think, the liquidity option ties into counterparty risk for this idea that, you have the option to exit your hosting contract at any time by listing your rig for sale and finding a buyer, versus, going to a potentially sketchy hosting provider, signing a 3-5 year hosting contract, and then something happens, and then you're stuck, you lost, whatever. Versus Blockware Marketplace, you say, hey, maybe you had the magic crystal ball that everyone's looking for, and in November 2021, you're like, oh my god, the market's about to take a huge dive, I want to get out of Bitcoin mining. Assuming the marketplace was around then, which it wasn't, but you would have had the option to list your rig for sale and effectively get out of your mining contract. I think the other side of it is this idea of transparency that Danny talked to, which, like he mentioned, isn't something that sounds super fancy. It kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but like Danny mentioned, that this is not something that existed in the industry prior to us rolling out the marketplace in April, where you can go online on the marketplace, click on a listing, see the serial number of, I think, well, first and foremost, the serial number of the rig is, I think, super cool to see. You can go on the Bitmain, website, or the, MicroBT website or whatever, and punch in the serial number of your machine, see how much warranty is left on this machine, see when this thing was manufactured. And then you can also see there's an online sync state there. So you can see this specific rig, the one you're looking at with this serial number, was plugged in at Blockware's data center on whatever, March 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Like, what other hosting provider is providing you with that kind of transparency on the exact machine you're buying? There's none of them. So I think, that also, brings down a level of counterparty risk. And it's this idea of, those two factors, the liquidity and the transparency on machine performance and serial number and things like that, combined with the fact that, all of these rigs listed on there at the moment are from, are currently hashing at our data center in Kentucky that we own and operate. So I think the issue with a lot of other hosting providers is that using, third-party co-located facilities, and not necessarily that there's an issue with that if there's a, agreed upon level of due diligence that occurs, but unfortunately across the industry that doesn't always occur, right? And 2022 is obviously, made that pretty obvious. But like it's this idea of like compounding counterparty risk, right? When you don't know the machine you're buying, you don't really know where they're holding it. You don't really know who's operating it. That's like 3 layers of counterparty risk compounded on each other is massive. So this idea is that, Blockware's run by a bunch of Bitcoiners. Like, we're all Bitcoiners. We believe in the full, ethos that is Bitcoin, and this idea of trying to, store your wealth in a place that's secure that only you can control. So this idea of counterparty risk scares the shit out of most Bitcoiners, and it scares the shit out of us too. So the whole idea is, if you're going to be in hosting and you don't have the means of running a data center by yourself, which 99.9% of people don't, you might as well do it at a place that is actively trying to minimize counterparty risk.